Yeah, I'm Sam and I work as a radio presenter. I think one of the main things that I've noticed about British Asian music since I started working in radio is just how much it's diversified over time. I think Asian music was just considered Asian music at one time, but now you've got all these subgenres of, urban Bhangra, where you've got rappers on beats and stuff. You've got R&B going on, hip hop. So it's not just your Bhangra Bollywood anymore. We've got a whole range of influences happening in the Asian scene at the moment. I think as well, one of the other things that I noticed is that at one time it was just, Asian music was just, if it's good music, it gets played. But now the focus on image has become really important. I think that the image of the artist is a big focal point, they've got to look cool. They've got to be a certain, character almost in their role as an artist. So you've got people like, I don't know, Kaz Kumar, for example, who has got a very unique sense of style, very different sound, I think, to the majority of the standard Asian artists that we've had in the past. And then you've got artists as well now who maybe they don't have any real Asian influence in their music at all. They just happen to be of Asian origin. So people like Sam Khan, for example, he's got a track at the moment called Love Your Lady. And if you were to hear that on any mainstream station, you wouldn't give it an Asian label at all, because it really just doesn't have anything in it which makes you think Asian. But he happens to be of Asian origin, so he's a British Asian artist. So I think those are the main things that I've noticed, that it's just diversified so much. It's gone from being just Bhangra and Bollywood to being a whole host of subgenres. And I think that maybe the artists as well are starting to feel that it's okay to be a unique person now and to be a little bit different to what people expected in the past. I think British Asian music as a whole is gaining momentum. There's a lot more of it around than there was at one time. Like I said before, there used to be just Bhangra Bollywood, so we had sort of the likes of the Hira and the B21 and those guys. But now you've got such a large number of people listening to so many different kinds of music, and British Asian artists are actually catering for those now. It's certainly gaining momentum in that sense, and also it's become quite trendy as well. I think. I mean, you've got the Pussycat Dolls doing things like J-Ho as part of Slumdog. They brought A.R. Rahman, who within the Asian communities has been well known for years and well respected and admired, but he's only just come to the forefront, I think, outside of that community, and they've kind of brought him out, and people have started listening to this and thinking, wow, this is great. Even artists like Timbaland have been using Indian beats in their music for years and years. And now, people are sort of becoming quite curious, I think, as to why people, in the mainstream are using Indian influences in their music. One of the other reasons that people are tuning into British Asian music is because when I was younger, certainly, there was only really one Asian radio station that catered for Asian taste in the London area. And that was really aimed at our parents, not really at the youngsters. We listened to it because our parents listened to it. But I think now, with the younger generation coming out and producing music of their own, there are a lot more platforms and outlets for British Asian music. You've got a wide range of stations now who play this kind of stuff, and you've got stations like Buzz Asia, for example, who will cater for a much younger audience and who will play music that the likes of these older stations wouldn't really play or wouldn't really be interested in. So I think that more people are tuning in because there's a lot more music to listen to. I think that because there's a wider variety of music to listen to, and also because there's a lot more places for them to listen to it. I think the way that I'm expecting the British Asian scene to go in the future is for these subgenres to not really exist so much anymore. I think at some point, British Asian artists are not going to be labelled British Asian artists. We'll have Asians who are R&B singers or hip hop artists or whatever, but they won't be labelled as Asian. They'll just be a singer in their own right, as opposed to being an Asian singer. I think it's similar to perhaps quite a long time ago, the West Indian community and the black community. Black people can make any music of any genre without being labelled black first and then an artist second. And I think that will happen over time as the quality of the music gets better, as it does overlap into the mainstream a bit more. the artists are going to lose the label of being Asian, and it's just going to become, you know, R&B or whatever, but it may well have Asian influences, you know, underlying in there as well. The other thing that I'm expecting, I think, is for a lot more British Asians to get involved with Bollywood. We've already seen that starting to happen. You know, Hardcore moved from the UK to India to actually work in Bollywood, and she's now got an acting role on top of everything else that she's been doing out there. And you've had the likes of, you know, Juggy D and Mumsy and Jay Sean making tracks that are featured in Bollywood movies. And I think the Bollywood market is quite a lucrative one for British Asians, because over time it's become more and more difficult to make money out of music. You know, with you know, downloading going on and CD sales dropping, it's a lot more difficult for artists to make the money that they used to, even if it wasn't that much anyway. So I think that, you know, they're sort of almost taking advantage of the fact that Bollywood is so successful, and getting themselves in there will be a good way for them to get a platform, to get noticed, and eventually really to make money out of it. To see if there's anything else that I want to say on that. Yeah, and the other thing I would say is that I'd expect the quality of the music to improve over time as well. I'd expect that Asian artists will take advantage of new technology, of new marketing techniques, and also to break free of the Asian mould, I guess, to some extent, because I think a lot of our artists are starting to realise now that you don't necessarily need to have an Asian manager or an Asian PR company backing you. You just need to have a good manager and a good PR company. And I think that's quite important as well, because I think in the past it's always been, you know, the Asians work with the Asians, and, you know, I'm expecting there to be a lot more mixing going on in that respect. Say I've got a lot of Western people tuning into the music station, but I would say that there are some. I think the reason behind that is varied. First of all, music is a universal language. Good music is good music, regardless of what culture it comes from. You know, it really doesn't matter. But on the other hand as well, I think the reason why I may have non-Asians tuning into my show is down to, for example, you know, artists like Jay Sean working with Lil Wayne, Alicia Dixon, Sean Paul, and, you know, you've got the likes of Priya Kalidas as well, who've come from EastEnders and released music, and she's of Asian origin. What that does is it has an overlap with the Western culture, and I think it makes people curious, because what happens is that people who are fans of Lil Wayne and Sean Paul and Alicia Dixon will hear someone like Jay Sean on their tracks, and they will think, who's this guy, you know, and what's he all about? Why has my idol, you know, chosen to feature this person on their track? So they'll become curious, I guess, and they'll listen to Asian music and try and find out where, you know, what's so good about this person's music. And I think that has definitely sort of drawn an audience that's non-Asian. On top of that as well, like I was saying before, the Asian music scene as well, it's getting a lot of influences that are non-Asian. You know, we're getting, you know, reggae influences in our music now, and R&B and hip hop and all of that. So people who listen to those musics on that kind of music on a mainstream level, I think, you know, they may like the Indian influence in the music that they listen to already. And also social networking, I think, does play a part in that as well, with a lot of people on Facebook and Twitter. You've got artists promoting themselves on there, and they may well have friends and colleagues and associates that are non-Asian who become curious and think, oh, this person that I know who's got a day job that's normal actually does this in their spare time. What is it? Let me have a little listen. And that's why I think they take an interest in it. British Asian artists like that, we do get quite a lot of requests for them. I mean, the two examples that you've given me, I would say Jay Sean far more than Priya. Not because one is better than the other or anything necessarily like that, but I think Jay Sean, certainly from a musical perspective, has been around for a lot longer. So he's released a lot more music, which means there's a lot more that people can request from him. Priya is obviously fairly new to the music scene. Certainly she's only just released a few tracks here and there, and so obviously the requests that come in for her are a much lower level, I think, than Jay. But I think as a whole, if you mean, am I getting a lot of requests for British Asian artists? Yes, I am. I think to some extent it's considered cool to listen to these guys. You know, we get a lot of requests for, you know, the Mumsy and the Rishi Rich camp as a whole, actually, you know, the Veronicas and all that kind of stuff. We do get quite a few requests for them. But having said that, we do still have a large number of Asian listeners who are still interested in the traditional Bollywood, in the traditional Bhangra. So I would say that, to be honest, it's about 50-50 at the moment. You know, it's not more of one and more of the other. It's, you know, it's certainly a level number of people, I think, requesting both types of music. What I've found are that Jay Sean, Punjabi MC, Desi, Juggy D, RDB, and pretty much the entire Rishi Rich collective get requested the most. Two other artists who I put in there who are not necessarily British Asian, but who I think the UK has been very important for, would be Imran Khan and Miss Pooja. A lot of requests for these two. I know that they're not of British descent, but I mean, Imran Khan has made a big push here in the UK with his albums, and Miss Pooja again has had a massive influence on the Bhangra scene here in the UK. I mean, Birmingham, I think, is pretty much known as the capital of Bhangra across the world, really. I mean, you know, that's quite surprising, but it has actually been known to be described as that. You know, despite the fact that the music obviously originated in India, Birmingham's become the hub. And, you know, Miss Pooja, I actually went to a Miss Pooja concert and it was phenomenal, the amount of support that she got. So although those two artists are not British Asian as such, I'd almost put them into the same category, and I do get a lot of requests for those guys as well. I think that there's a lot to do with what lies behind their success. Um, Unfortunately, as sad as it might be, it's true that financial backing has a massive impact. If people have got the money backing them, they can get high quality videos, they can get high quality production, they can get high quality marketing, and you know, it's what puts them in the forefront and puts them in front of people in people's faces, and people it's more accessible for people to get their music and to see these artists, and you know, and it also makes them more appealing. And I think having a certain appeal as an artist is a very, very important thing. It might seem obvious, but you know, having a degree of charisma and a particular image is still a very important thing. We still have people trying to get the Jay Sean haircut. You know, it's still one of those things that people do. You know, you might think that it sounds sad or cringeworthy or whatever, but people still do look up to and admire, you know, these people as role models. So having that backing, you know, a great stylist and that kind of thing really does make a big difference as to whether or not you know, they are popular. And I think with channels like ZTV and B4U now giving a platform for videos, that's making a big impact, because now all of a sudden it's actually important to have a good video with your track, whereas before there wasn't really anywhere that people would play an Asian music video. It wouldn't have come on, like, you know, a standard mainstream channel, but now that artists have got platform for this, they're making videos, and you've got the likes of Jazzy B making videos that are breaking records in the Asian music scene, certainly. You know, and when you can afford to have, you know, really expensive cars and things like that in your videos, it does make a big difference. And a lot of people will tune in and think, wow, look at this, Jazzy B's the first one to do that. So yeah, it does make a big difference. And I think, again, as well, having that support behind them makes them more successful, because they're able to collaborate with big names. You know, Joe Bloggs from the street's going to find it very difficult to get Timbaland on a beat on their track, you know, whereas someone like, you know, Jay Sean wouldn't find it so hard, because, you know, maybe he's got the backing and he's got the contacts to be able to do that. And I think that does make them more successful, having that kind of backing and having the financial aspect of it. I think it's sad, you know, it should really be just about being good music, but as unfortunate as it is, I think that money does talk in this.